Well, welcome to the show.
This is our view from the bench.
Well, welcome to the show. I'm Brendan, Jason Kelsey's lost t-shirt.
And I'm Corey, football goalpost netting guy. And happy Monday.
Happy Monday, man. You made it through the weekend. Unfortunately, my week starts. How was your weekend?
Not too bad. Ducks game yesterday was a little rough because they lost.
Yeah, you told me a little bit about that one.
You go up 2-0 and then you end up losing 5-2. It kind of takes all the gust out of the building and everyone leaves early, and then it just makes the night at the end a little bit rougher. But overall, I got to watch some football on Saturday at least, and got to see some good games. Obviously, I did miss a little bit of last night's game, but saw part of it since I was at work. But overall, not too bad. How about your weekend?
It was pretty chill. I actually started getting sick again. I don't know if anybody could hear it in my throat, or my voice, but it seems to be similar what I just freaking recovered for. So today I went to the freaking doctor. I was like, okay, fine. Last time I tried to tough it out, I didn't take anything besides like over the counter stuff. Today I went to the doctor. They gave me some, antibiotics and stuff like that. So hopefully I can like get this over with. But the weekend was good. Rocking red today. I'm not a Chiefs fan per se, but definitely was rooting for them. Rocking the red because they freaking pulled it off. Just super stoked. But before we get into all that, if you're not already, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and click that notification bell so you never miss another episode. And if you like what you see, smash it. What are they smashing, man?
Smash that like button.
Smash it, man. We'd love the feedback. We'd like all that. Just throw some comments and anything that you'd like to talk about. We'd love to talk back. So, but now that we're kind of already rolling, we got a huge episode ahead of us. There's a bunch of stuff that we need to cover. We even had to take some stuff out because it was just too much. But we're gonna start with
like
those
3 hours if we kept it all in there. It seems.
Oh, seriously, which I'm kind of down for. It's super fun, but at the same time, I'm also kind of sick, so still trying to recover. And I get excited about this kind of stuff, so I'm trying to keep it down a little bit. But we will start with those divisional playoffs in the NFL. We'll just kind of go in sequential order of the games that happened, and we're going to start on Saturday afternoon. Texans went to Baltimore to take on the number 1 seed Ravens, and it kind of went as most people probably expected, although the Texans story is fantastic and a great one, especially with a rookie quarterback and a rookie head coach. They did obviously meet their match in this extremely, extremely tough Ravens squad. You said you watched some on Saturday. Is this one of those games you were able to catch?
Yeah, thankfully, since I was working the store just day shift, but we have 20 TVs that we control whatever we want to watch. So I definitely made sure this game was on, and because of the rain and the fact that there was a concert there that night, the parking lot is all kind of screwed up. So we didn't have very many people in the store, so was able to kind of keep an eye on most of this game. I was shocked at how well the Texans. I shouldn't say well in the first half. They did have a lot of offside or false start penalties. Baltimore fans in general, definitely made them feeling that, and even Tunsil I think had one, which is weird. He's not typically one that jumps, but they could have been leading 13-10 and a half if they hadn't missed that field goal. But I think just once they got to halftime, the Ravens went into the locker room and finally kind of worked that rust off after really not playing anybody important for about 3 weeks. And as it said in the post game, they asked Lamar who talked to halftime, and he straight up said I did, and there might have been some cursing, so kind of woke them up on offense, and Lamar came back to play in the second half for sure. Even though the Texans had 10 points at half, they really only got the 1 touchdown on a punt return. So CJ Stroud and them struggled against this Raven defense. But like we talked about going into this, that defense is, if not the best, one of the best in the NFL.
Yeah, no, they are insane. They're fast. They don't miss tackles. They don't lose coverages. CJ normally can kind of pick apart a defense, find that one corner that makes a mistake, or that one linebacker who's matched up on a receiver for that down. And it was just not happening. He had almost no time in the pocket with a decent offensive line. I mean, I'm not saying they're great, but like you said, Laramie Tunsil is a great pickup. And it just wasn't working. It was a sad day for my boy CJ. But honestly, I mean, first year, he looks to have a pretty long career ahead of him, and there's no shame to losing to this team, especially like in Baltimore. But like you mentioned, I mean, CJ, they didn't score. I mean, they had the 1 field goal that they were able to drive down and tie it at 3. But after that, the only touchdown was the punt return, which was honestly a great punt return. Yeah. Lamar and company look great. This matchup with Kansas City next week is going to be freaking epic, to be honest with you. It's going to be so good. 2 of the best teams in the AFC, if not the 2 best teams in the AFC, completely, from coaching staff to players to elite quarterbacks. It's going to be awesome, especially randomly since the Chiefs have a higher rated defense than probably normal. So
Yeah,
it's going
true.
to be a pretty good battle. It's going to be a pretty good battle. I'm excited for it.
Yeah,
Not
definitely
much
looking
to
forward
say.
to it.
Go ahead.
Definitely looking forward to it. I feel like like you talked about the Texans, this is a good step for them because nobody expected them to be here. And I feel bad. Well, you're a Cardinal fan, so I guess I feel bad for you that you guys made that trade thinking that you would get their pick from them this year and it would, kind of help you guys. But now they finished so well that the pick is way back in the middle of the draft, so it's going to be kind of a waste in that sense.
Hmm.
But not only that, they do have, I think, if I read right, like $40 to $50 million in cap space because they're basically paying a bunch of rookies and young guys on cheap contracts. So they'll be able to add some pieces. Unfortunately, as a Titans fan, they're probably going to be around for a while in the AFC South and see what they can do moving forward.
That's actually a really good point. As much as it would have been nice to have, a higher pick as a Cardinals fan, I'm a fan of people apparently in the NFL because since I like CJ, I'm kind of rooting for the Texans. Obviously, I like Mahomes, so I'm kind of rooting for the Chiefs. I guess I'm more of a fan of people, like I was of Tom Brady. But yeah, I mean, some of their best weapons. I think you looked up Tank Dell's contract gets paid $1 million next year.
Yeah, they're
He's
making like
one of the
nothing.
he's Yeah, yeah. CJ's obviously on his long rookie contract, so they've got years to kind of build around him. One of their best defensive players is on a rookie contract as well, and Will Anderson. So they have a lot, and like you said, a lot of cap space. Go build around it, get him some protection, and shore up that defense. And this team's going to be pretty scary. Sorry to say for you for your
Yeah.
AFC South there.
Yeah, it looks like we might actually be rivals if you're still rooting for CJ Stroud the next few years as a Texan. I guess me and you might be going head to head twice a year next year.
Twice a year, Nick. Yeah, let's get it. Of course, friendly rivals, of
Well,
course,
yeah,
because but yeah, I mean it was a pretty good game. For the first half, the Ravens obviously kind of took care of business. They won by 24. Spread was 9.5. Obviously, easily covered that. But one of the games that I thought was going to be a cover, which is also between kind of friend rivals, was that Packers Niners game.
oh,
I'm obviously rooting for, not obvious. I think I made it obvious. I was rooting for the Packers, just not much of a Niners fan for a handful of reasons. The first one being that I'm a Cardinals fan and they're in our division. And there's something else that I'll kind of leave for a moment to talk about the Niners, but let's talk about the game. This was obviously on Saturday too. Were you off work and you got to watch this at home, or how'd
yep.
that work?
Dude, I literally pulled up in the parking lot, walked in at my house at like 5:10, and they kicked off like 10 minutes later. So it was
Oh,
perfect. I
perfect.
got to watch everything. You say you weren't rooting for the Niners, but you're wearing red, so I guess you're just wearing red
No,
only
it's for
for
the
Kansas
Chiefs.
City.
Yeah.
But
Jeez.
yeah, I think the weather obviously played a big part in this too because we didn't expect it to be raining. And Purdy walked out there with a glove on first, and obviously threw a couple. You could tell he was off. I think the weather just really played a big factor. And again, we talked about rust versus rest with Baltimore. It was the same thing with San Francisco. They didn't play Purdy and any of those guys the last week of the season. They had the bye week, so essentially 3 weeks off. But the biggest thing too, I think, was Debo goes down before half and doesn't
Yeah.
come back, and that changes everything on their offense because that was one of the things we talked about is San Francisco is really good when they're healthy and all the weapons and options are there. And once he's out, that's like him and Christian McCaffrey are the two guys on the offense that kind of keep everything rolling within that system. And without him, it definitely changed the way they went about it. Eventually, Purdy took the glove off. It was just there was some throws that he was off. Maybe the rust didn't wear off on him throughout the game because there were some throws that the guys were open. He just wasn't making the throws to the right spots, and it definitely hurt them moving forward throughout the game.
Yeah, I'm pretty fucking pissed. I know you can't put it all on the kicker, especially because we're going to talk about another kicker in a little bit. But like, what the fuck, man? I get he's a rookie, but you do have only one job. And I'm going to say the same thing in a little bit when we talk about another game.
Oh
The
yeah.
Packers, to be honest with you, played a great game. Not perfect, but they did definitely enough to win.
Oh yeah.
Carlson, it's the younger brother of Dan Carlson, the Raiders kicker. There's a stat that came out. He missed the most kicks of all kickers in this
Oh,
entire season.
ouch.
Matt LaFleur, now granted, he kind of backtracked it a little bit and said it was taken out of context, but Matt LaFleur literally prays when he goes out to kick field
I
goals.
did see that.
That's yeah, that's not a good look. Like again, he kind of took it back to saying that's not necessarily what he meant. He would do that with any kicker. He's not talking about that with there just because it's apparently a coin flip. But it was only 41 yards. And although it was raining, it wasn't pouring. The wind wasn't insane like it was in Buffalo, which again we'll talk about. But they really had the Niners on the ropes in this one. If they make that field goal, this is a completely different offensive strategy going forward because Jordan Love, instead of being tied with the ball and a chance to go win it, he's down with the ball and trying to do some I guess so you could say Brett Favre things, and
Good
uh,
way to
and
put it.
and and come back, lead that comeback. And that was a stupid throw, very stupid throw. He played a great game the entire game, and that pick was just so dumb. We'll talk about another dumb pick in a moment, but throw it out, dude. It was like second down.
I
Like
was just
it's
gonna
not like
say
it was
that.
fourth or anything like that. Like just throw it out. Let's try again. But if Carlson makes that kick again, it's a completely different mindset, at least for the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, big time. Like you said, the second down, there's no reason to force it, throw it out. You still have, I mean, at that point, you're playing 4 down territory. You're not going to give them the
100%,
ball
yeah.
back. So that gives you 2 more plays to get a first down and keep moving down the field. But again, that's kind of the young part of Jordan Love. There's moments where probably forcing things that he normally in the future probably would realize, oh, maybe not the best idea. I should throw it away, or even run and try to get something out of the play instead of
Yeah.
forcing it in. And again, it's his first full year, and it's his first playoff game. Well, second playoff game. Like last week, I guess we counted as a playoff game. The Cowboys didn't show up, but
No, yeah,
this
only
week
one
the
team played.
Niners defense was much better. Chase Young and Joey Bosa just man, they're really good. The Niners on defense with Warner and what's the other guy who got the pick at the end? Greenlaw, right? They are just
Yeah.
defensively on the front seven. They are stacked, and if you can't get anything going against them, although I did feel like Aaron Jones actually had a decent game
Yes.
considering.
Hmm.
You figured with the line that they have on the San Francisco side that they wouldn't let the running game get out of control, which Aaron Jones, again, he's been hot the last, 6 weeks or so. I think he's the best running back as far as yards per game in that stretch.
Yeah.
But yeah, like
He's
you
a
said, it came down.
beast.
Oh yeah, and then it came down to the kicker, like you said. If they had that game tied, then you could go a completely different way of trying to move the ball down the field in those last 2 minutes and trying to either get an opportunity to win the game at the buzzer or even force overtime if you couldn't get it, but you were able to run some
Exactly.
clock off. Because I don't think Purdy and them, if they had to make a last minute or 2 minute drive in order to get a win, I don't know if they would have been able to do it without Debo and the way he was struggling throwing the ball throughout the whole game.
Yeah, true. And I mean, unless you're turning the ball over on downs or this obviously game-losing interception, they had all three timeouts with like a minute left. So they were going to take it down to the end of the clock. It was just a matter of how far on the field could they get, and throwing across the field, across your body, running away from where it was just not smart, just not smart, but completely uncharacteristic of him. Go Lions. What?
Yeah, go Lions. I'm with you there, man. Moving on to the Lion game, they and the Bucks, man. I did not expect this to quite go the way as far as closest score. I thought for sure the Lions would come out and get a big lead early, and then Baker and them would just be like struggling to kind of keep up. But at halftime, I was like, oh, I think the Bucks could actually win this game. I mean, if you're the Tampa Bay Bucks and you go into the locker room at halftime, you have to think like, okay, we didn't play our best half, especially offensively, but defensively, we kept the Lions, who are really good on offense, kind of to the ground, and had an opportunity at halftime to go and make some adjustments and see if they could ultimately win this game. But again, it comes down to another bad pick by Baker, like we talked about with Jordan Love. Like, why are you forcing something
Hmm.
at that point when you don't necessarily need to?
No, it was definitely strength versus strength. The best part of what the Bucks bring to the table is their defense. It's really what helped them win a Super Bowl a couple of years ago with Tom Brady. Besides, obviously having Tom Brady at the helm and a great offense. Let me not put their offense down, especially when, regardless of what C.J. Gardner Johnson thinks, when they have a good quarterback. I think Baker did pretty good. The only pick that was bad was the game-ending one. The one where CJ was talking shit was a complete tip
Yeah.
drill. It's not like he played it well or he did anything. Mike Evans had it hit his hands and it flew up in the air, sat there for about 30 to 45 seconds while anybody in the whole world could have grabbed it. And CJ Gardner Johnson made sure to rub it in his face. I know you saw when he walked over and handed him the ball and said, "Here you go." It was a good game. Sad that it ended on the Mayfield interception because he knows that he shouldn't have thrown that ball. And like you and I were talking about, we're kind of not rooting for Mayfield, but definitely not rooting against him. I mean, he was a former number overall pick who got a pretty bad shake in Cleveland. That was before they could really get anything. I know they've added pieces, and Kevin Stefanski was there, but I mean, before that, he had gone through a bunch of different quarterbacks, a bunch of coaches and some coordinators, and he just kind of got a bad shake. Obviously, the Rams wasn't a permanent place because they had Stafford. It was just because he was hurt. And Carolina is a pretty trash ass team, as you can see. Even when they
Yeah.
draft a number one overall pick again, they can't do much with it. So I think he's kind of gotten a bad shake just from the teams that he's been played on, except LA, obviously. But again, they don't need him there with Matt there. So I'm hoping that he kind of comes back and does pretty well. I was somewhat rooting for the Bucks to keep it close. I do think that the Lions have a better chance at beating the Niners, so I'm glad that they advanced. But it was a nice back and forth game. Both teams played awesome, and I'm just happy that I got to watch most of it, and yeah,
Yeah, and
not much other than that.
you got to think too, if you're Rams fan, Goff obviously got traded to Detroit and they beat you. You got to think you're rooting for them at this point because I mean,
A little
it's not
bit.
like when Goff left, everybody like hated him. It was just like, well, we understand. We're gonna go to Stafford, who's a little more veteran and
Mhm.
experienced, and maybe can like get us over the hump, which he ultimately did. And I
Did.
think the fact that the Rams went to a Super Bowl with Goff is like a big benefit for the Lions because he's been there before. He kind of knows what to expect. Obviously, they're not going to run into Bill Belichick this time in the Super Bowl, so that's a helpful thing. But also, like, not only that, now that they go to San Francisco next week, that's his former division opponent that he played a lot. So he'll understand and know what they're expecting of trying to go against him and work on. So it'll be interesting to see what Detroit can do next week. Also, Goff did go to Cal and is from NorCal, so he's kind of getting a homecoming going to San Francisco next week and have an opportunity to go to the Super Bowl. Did I just say the Lions have
The
that's weird.
Lions.
Ooh, I never
Yeah,
thought I'd say that in my lifetime, but yeah, Goff
me
and them.
either. I kind of just got the
Although
chills.
Goff had one throw that should have been intercepted, I think, in the second quarter. That guy for Tampa Bay in the end zone, it was in his hands. I don't know how he didn't catch that. That could have been a completely momentum changer before halftime, but the Lions definitely got lucky there.
Well, that's probably why he plays DB, I guess, right? Instead of being a receiver.
That's a
But you
very
and I
good
kind of
point.
talked about it yesterday. The fact that he was in a division with the Niners for so long. Now, granted, things have changed a tad bit. They've changed defensive coordinators and stuff like that. So obviously, it's not the same exact scheme. But a lot of what, again, I'm not in professional football, but my belief is a lot of what defensive coordinators, how they scheme their defense, is based on the personnel that they have. Well, it's basically the same type of or exact same personnel that Goff was playing against when he was in LA. So as much as he's not going to know exactly what's coming, I have a feeling that he's going to be a little bit more comfortable playing this team than others would be against this vaunted, Niners defense. So I'm looking forward to it. The spread was actually pretty close. I'll double check it right now to see what it was, but it opened up at less than what the Packers was. So it is -7. I believe the Packers were about
Ooh,
9.5. We said right. So touchdown difference, and like you say all the time, you get 3 points for being at home. So they're basically like a 4 point spread. That's not bad. I'll take that, and I think that the Lions truly have a chance. Do I think they're going to win it all? You'll have
great.
to tune in to the next episode. But I think they have a chance for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, the Lions have a chance to go to the Super Bowl. I never thought I'd see those words in my lifetime. So the fact that we're here and talking about it and going to preview it on our next episode, I'm excited to see what happens because you never know. That's why they play the game, as my dad always tells me. Like earlier in the season when the
Yep.
Dolphins played the Titans, I was like, I don't know why we're even playing this game. Just give us the loss. Because, well, plus I was rooting for losses at that point to get drafted, which is
Yeah,
a whole
true.
other thing. But, we ended up winning the game. So, again, that's why they play the game. So we'll see what happens next week.
The I saw a couple things today, and I have to kind of give it credit. I forgot exactly who said it. I was watching a handful of shows, but the real kind of MVPs around here is like the Lions front office, man. They've built up a great team. I think the trade that you mentioned previously for Jared Goff has really obviously benefited both sides. They got a bunch of first round picks out of it that they've turned into extremely good talent. Jared Goff gets a thing, gets a team to himself. The Rams got the ring. It's just kind of been super beneficial, and they've hit on so many rookies, so many of their rookies,
Exactly.
from Laporta to Gibbs to Penei Sewell, Aiden Hutchinson. They've hit on so many good and developed them well as well. So props to the Lions organization as a whole and Dan Campbell heading that locker room.
Yeah.
He is, like we talk about all the time, someone we're willing to run through a wall for after some of those speeches.
Yeah, and the fact that you mentioned him, I think they said yesterday when they won was actually the 3-year anniversary of him getting hired and having that whole press conference speech of we're going to bite your kneecaps off and then bite another one off. So the fact that he's able to do what he's done with this team in the 3 years and what they've built, like you said, with a lot of young guys, Aiden Hutchinson, you mentioned as well on the defensive side, and Aaron
Oof,
Glenn has turned that defense. They're not great necessarily on the
good
backside, but
enough.
they are very good up front and they win a lot of games in the trenches, which will be a huge thing that we talk about when we preview the NFC title game.
Yeah, and CJ Garner Johnson, he was out for most of the season. I think he got hurt week 1 or 2. If not, I think it was week 1. He's back. I know he was talking crap and he made a play again. It was a tip drill, but kind of just shores up and gives that attitude that Dan Campbell brings. It brings it to the defensive side of the ball. So super excited for the NFC Championship. Well, super excited for both. But yeah, it was a good game. Good game. That was the Sunday afternoon game, right?
Yep. And you
Yeah.
mentioned how you're really excited for both games. I know you're excited to talk about this last game that was last night that everybody was watching as you're wearing your red. What a game, man. The Bills. It's always it's like they get rid of Tom Brady and then they have to deal with Mahomes instead for the next forever. It seems like I feel bad for them. Mahomes played well in 17-23. It didn't like doesn't like he went out there and went crazy and threw a bunch. They kind of more balanced the offense and had Pacheco I think near 100 yards and they just I don't know the
Yeah,
Chiefs even
97.
though they didn't have the greatest regular season. It's one of those things. I feel like Mahomes is kind of like Brady. Like it's hard to pick against him and until he actually loses, I just assume he's going to win every game.
Yeah, I mean, he pretty much does. He's been a starter for 6 seasons, and he's made it to the AFC Championship 6 times. So he basically is AFC Championship or bust at the minimum. Obviously, he's been to 3 Super Bowls and won 2 of them. So I'm so stoked, dude. Let's go. Let's go. So stoked for the win. Very happy. Again, super big Mahomes fan. Love it. Another game for the ages, to be honest with you, because these two teams just seem to battle, and they always seem to be close. Granted, the Chiefs always seem to come out on top, which is awesome. The defense did a phenomenal job, stood it up when it counted because they were kind of letting Buffalo walk over them. Not walk over, they were kind of going back and forth, obviously. But through the first 3 quarters, it was pretty much the Josh Allen offensive show.
Yep.
And Spagnuolo and the defense finally stood up in the fourth quarter and said, "No, no, this is it. This is done."
Well, not
They
only
have a
that,
lot.
if you think about it, like had that field goal not gone wide right, which sorry Buffalo fans, I know you hate those two words.
One for us. The game on the line. He will. 44 yards. Bass. No, he doesn't make it. Wide right. Wow. The two most dreaded words in Buffalo have surfaced again.
For the history of the team, but if it hadn't gone wide right and he had made it, they still would have given Mahomes and the Chiefs the ball back with like a
Minute
minute
and
40.
40.
So we
Mm-hmm.
still could be having the same conversation at the end of the
Yep.
day, regardless if that goes in or not. But again, the Bills fans just, I don't know if you saw it. We don't have the clip or anything, but if you can look it up somewhere, there's the Korean
Yes, I
audio
did.
version.
Oh!
Oh, yeah. They're just like so calm and basic. And as soon as it goes wide right, they just explode with like, oh my God, he's going to miss it. But it is hilarious to hear the other languages sometimes when these calls are made. And again, the Bills just being the Bills, I guess, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean they go to 4 straight Super Bowls and lose all 4. It seems to just destined to be, just not an elite team. I hope they never win. I mean, anyways. So real quick though, I am dropping the Jay Cutler talk because Josh Allen did look good yesterday, at least decent. He didn't kill them on the turnovers thanks to the team recovering his fumble,
Yeah.
but having 3 more completions than Mahomes did attempts and still only throwing for 186 yards to Mahomes 215. It was just extremely inefficient.
Yeah.
All the passes were short, if not behind the line of scrimmage. 16 passes behind the line of scrimmage, which is the most completed in
Wow.
a football game. And it's just that's not how you're going to win games is by throwing it to exactly where you started. In fact, one of those ones at the beginning of the game I showed you last night,
I'm glad
he
you
was
said
literally
that.
running. He was running in the middle of the field and throws it backwards. People
Yeah.
talking about how the refs are always on the Chiefs side. No one even stopped to think twice whether that was a forward lateral, and it completely was. So, but other than that, some of his passes were short, others were dropped. Stephon Diggs went right through his hands, or just slightly misplaced. It's just he wasn't the turnover machine. So I'm gonna drop the Jay Cutler talk for now. But Spagnola really game planned well for Buffalo. The kicker obviously does take some blame, but wide right will, like you said, forever haunt the Bills, and I love it. I love it.
Feel bad. And you mentioned, I think you were listening to a podcast with Richard Sherman talking about the game post
Yes.
this. Like, I know you mentioned there was a quote about how the Chiefs played more to win than the Bills did.
Yeah, so on his podcast, he kind of just is discussing the all the games of the weekend, but this one quote really stood out to me the most when he was talking about how the offense of the Bills was playing extremely conservative. They were basically playing they were thinking about the Chiefs offense while they were on offense. I understand that you don't want to give the ball back to Mahomes even with let's say 13 seconds left. But when you definitely are trying to run down the clock. His quote was this: "We know he has the propensity to turn the ball over," in speaking about Josh Allen. So we aren't even going to give him the opportunity to turn the ball over. I don't believe in that. You're not going to beat Patrick Mahomes by playing not to lose the game because you're going to lose. And obviously it did. Patrick Mahomes, you can't be thinking about, oh, what is Patrick going to do when he gets the ball back? We better run it out. They were more concerned about getting less time after taking a lead than they were on actually taking the lead. So I get that it's, the kicker missed it, but 2nd and 9, a wide open receiver. I think it was oh my gosh, I forgot his name. I apologize. There was a wide open receiver in the middle of the touchdown. but he gets run into by his offensive lineman, doesn't step up in the pocket, incompletion. Running around on 3rd and 9, throws it out of bounds, incompletion. Well, let's get it's 3rd and 9. Even if you get 7 more yards, that 44-yard field goal now turns into a 37-yard field goal. A little bit more easy, maybe, right? But he was going for the end zone. He was going for the win. He was going to get it all because you can't give it back to Mahomes. Well, if all you're thinking about is giving back to Mahomes, that's what you get, to be honest with you. I'm happy about it. So super happy.
Yeah, like you said, but even then, like we talked about, had they even scored on that drive, you still would have given the ball back to Mahomes with some time and a couple timeouts. So it's not even guaranteed. You shouldn't be worrying about, like Sherman said, about what their offense is going to do while your offense is on the field. Like, take care of your business, get the lead, and then at that point, the chips fall where they may
from there.
on your defensive side. Like, let them do what they need to do.
A couple more Josh Allen stats before we kind of talk about a couple other things. 0-4 on throws of 10-plus yards on his final 3 drives.
Oh,
that's not good. 7-14 for 44 yards, 18 rushing yards, and a fumble that was luckily recovered in the fourth quarter. 44 yards and 18 rushing yards and a fumble in the fourth quarter. You can say all you want about, well, the team didn't step up on defense and the kicker missed the field goal. When it mattered most, the quarterback needs to step up. And he did not in the fourth quarter. Sure, if you look at his stats for the whole game, it looks fantastic. But when most of that work is in the first 3 quarters, and you're down the line in the fourth, and these are your stat lines, that's just not good enough. Especially, like you said, to beat this Patrick Mahomes team with this insanely good defense that came out of nowhere. The only passing touchdown that Buffalo had, which was again to Khalil Shakir. I keep on saying Shakur because of freaking Tupac. Sorry, rest in peace. The only touchdown that he threw was actually L'Jarius Sneed's, the only touchdown that he allowed all season. That was the first one that he allowed on anybody that he was covering. And it was a dime, too, so I'll give Allen props for that. But shutting off the hot water in the locker room after your loss and throwing snowballs at the players, like, dude, a typical Bills, like, low-life freaking fans, just get it together, dude. You lost again. This time it was at home. You got no excuses. You lost to Burrow at home. Now you've lost to Mahomes at home. You lose to Mahomes on the road. I don't know what it is, man. Get better. Get better.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was listening, I don't know who I was listening to this morning talk about, but even the fact that Mahomes has been in the AFC title game every year, occasionally there's been a blip on the radar. Well, the first year he lost to Brady, which of course that makes sense. But then they even did lose to Burrow and the Bengals, who ended up going to the Super Bowl. So it's not like nobody has beaten Pat in the AFC title game. It's just the fact that Allen has not been one of those quarterbacks to get over the hump and beat him in a one-on-one matchup in a playoff game.
That's a very good point. Speaking of Patrick Mahomes, there was some talk that the Chiefs Twitter, I think it was, released the details. It was actually Buffalo's pick, the 10th pick in the draft where they picked in 2017, I believe it was, when they picked Patrick Mahomes. They traded with Buffalo to get that trade. So the Chiefs got the 10th pick and took Patrick Mahomes. Bills got the 27th pick that year, a 3rd-round pick that year, and a 2018 first-round pick. Now, I know that hindsight's 2020, and this could all possibly be a connection to Andy Reid. But damn, that's got to sting knowing that was the Bills' pick, and it's the same guy that comes back to beat you constantly. That gotta hurt.
Yeah, that definitely does. But even then, like if you think about it, nobody was talking about Mahomes coming out of Texas Tech, I believe, that he was going to be like the next guy, or even in the draft that high. So the fact that they were able to get him at 10 and make the Bills make a trade. I don't know who the Bills got with those 3 picks they got out of that trade, but yeah, the fact that he's the one who comes back and beats you over and over and over in the playoffs definitely has to sting a little bit if you're the Buffalo Bills.
Ouch. Definitely does. So anyways, great weekend of games. We have, obviously, the matchups are set. Lions going to San Francisco to take on the Niners. The Chiefs heading to Baltimore to take on the Ravens. Make sure you tune into the next episode when we preview those games. Chiefs currently underdogs by 3.5. Lions underdogs by 7. Those are the 2 teams I'm rooting for, but wouldn't be mad if the Ravens won. To me, it was anybody but Buffalo, nicely done, and anybody but the Niners, still kind of in it. So, looking forward to the championship weekend coming up.
Heck yeah, and also my Super Bowl pick is still alive preseason. I did pick Niners and Ravens in the Super Bowl, so I'm still alive when it comes to that.
Yes, and we talked about this yesterday. If you had put money on it, I would be rooting for that. Even if I don't like the Niners, I would still be rooting for that just because that would be an insane pick, which is still would be an insane pick regardless of whether or not you win money on it. But you did call that back in August. Now, granted, they're both really good teams, but there's the Chiefs that are really good, the Bengals who we thought were going to be really good, the Eagles who we thought were going to be really good, and none of those teams are here. So, props, dude. Nice pick. Nice pick.
Should have bet on it. Damn it.
I know. Next time. Let's do it next year. Next year, maybe we'll both do it because I was atrocious at mine. And so maybe if your picks are bad next year, maybe my picks will be good. So we'll
All
check
right.
it out. We'll do it.
We'll take a look at it.
Yeah. We're going to stay in the NFL, but move away from the games. There's been a handful of news kind of floating around. Some of them are coaching hires and things like that. Some of them are interviews. We're going to start at the top with the Raiders hiring Antonio Pierce as, who was their interim head coach after letting go of Josh McDaniels. They solidify him as their new permanent head coach. I like the hire, bro. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's a great hire. The fact that the team and like Crosby was very adamant on Twitter about if they don't bring him back, he'll ask for a trade. So I think that played a little bit of part of it. Also, the Raiders did the same thing when they had Bisaccia take over a couple years ago when they made the playoffs that year. The players wanted him to come back. They decided to go a different way, and that didn't work out. So this time, I think listening to the players makes a little more sense. I mean, they did go 5-4 over the last 9 games as him as the interim coach. Not only that, they were I think they were the best defense in that stretch. They had allowed the fewest points per game, recorded the most defensive touchdowns, had the fewest penalties, all while tying for third in sacks in the league again during that time frame. So I think it's the right thing to do. I don't know. The one thing that people talked about though too is the report is out there that one of the things that helped Pierce in his interview and getting this job is he admitted during his interview, I don't know what I don't know. So he's going to hire somebody to come in and that's a former head coach and has more experience. There's talk of Marvin Lewis maybe coming in and being offensive coordinator, which I think would be perfect because even Marvin had the Bengals for a long time with Andy Dalton in the playoffs. Now, they didn't win any playoff games, but they were constantly in the playoffs after for so long the Bengals were just a joke and nobody wanted them or expected them to do anything. So I think that's a good start at least. The other name is Tom Coughlin, but I feel like Coughlin's kind of old and probably isn't going to come back into coaching at this point. But I think Marvin Lewis would make a great addition to the coaching staff.
I couldn't agree more, especially because he was maybe not. I don't remember if they won the division. I'm sure they won the division at least once or twice in an insanely tough AFC North. The Browns weren't good at the time. That's when they're good now, but they weren't good at the time. But being against the Steelers and the Ravens every single year, we talk about it all the time. Mike Tomlin has winning seasons. He's just never not had one. Yep. So being able to make the playoffs as much as they did with a below average team or an average team, let me put it that way. They had Ocho Cinco and TJ Houshmandzadeh as some weapons for Dalton to get it to, but it was still Andy Dalton.
Maybe when he was there initially, too, might have been the start of Marvin Lewis's thing, but still. They didn't have the biggest weapons. Ocho Cinco at the time was hot. Houshmandzadeh was good. But again, the Marvin Lewis was able to get the Bengals to be competitive for a long stretch of time was a huge improvement from where they were beforehand.
Agreed. We do have a clip, actually, of Antonio Pierce. They have like a little intro video that they made. Let's run that.
Raider Nation, stand up.
I like it. He kind of shows his swag. Bro, I know he played for the Giants, but he was born and bred and raised in an extremely big Raiders fan. So I feel like he's just so happy to kind of be in his element, and I honestly couldn't be more happy for him.
Yeah, I agree. And the fact that he comes in his black Air Force Ones, all blacked out, goes to that office and just tells the Raider fans, stand up, here we go. And the thing I would also look into or think about is they don't have a super high draft pick, but the fact that Jaden McDaniels, who is the quarterback, I think, at LSU that won the Heisman, he was at Arizona State when Pierce was there as a coach on that coaching staff. So there is a little bit of a relationship there. So don't be shocked if the Raiders try to trade up and get him and try to build the offense around him moving forward.
That'd be pretty cool. I mean, Aiden O'Connell didn't do a terrible job. Again, they won more games than they lost. He was able to kind of make it, but great competition to bring in, get that rookie. Exactly. They both be on rookie contracts, so you can spend elsewhere. I'm looking forward to it. Again, not a huge Raiders fan, but kind of becoming kind of liking them a little bit. My wife really likes Max Crosby, and they got something going on there in Vegas. It's a little bit different than Oakland, so it seems to. I kind of like them a little bit. Especially that whooping they put on the Chargers the other day. I'm trying to be a Chargers fan, but that was nasty.
Dude, they should
And
have fired Brandon Staley at halftime of that game. I don't know how they let him on the plane back home.
well, they felt bad. I mean, they fired him shortly afterwards. But yeah, it's they just felt bad. They couldn't leave him in Vegas. Although because he'd just be sitting there with like what they say in The Hangover with cocaine and strippers. He'd just be kind of stuck there. Who knows what could happen? So, but there's some more head coach hirings. We're gonna move into, speaking of the Bengals and Marvin Lewis. You guys, Titans, just this afternoon named your new head coach, previous Bengals offensive coordinator, Brian Callahan. I know that he's got a handful of credentials. Some of them were that he served obviously as the offensive coordinator for the Joe Burrow Super Bowl bound and since pretty good Bengals. He served as a quarterbacks coach for the Detroit Lions and the Raiders when they were in Oakland. He also was the offensive assistant for the Denver Broncos. He was on that staff when they won Super Bowl 50 against the Panthers. So he's got a handful of credentials. I want your thoughts on how basically what you think of the hire.
So initially, when I saw the name pop up on the blurb today about him getting hired, I thought, okay, I don't really know much about him, so I'm going to look into it. And then you mentioned all the things that he's done in his career already. And then also, he is the son of Bill Callahan, who coached the Raiders when they lost the Super Bowl back in the day to the Bucs and they got killed down in San Diego.
Remember that.
But he is a football lifer in a sense, which is kind of like Shanahan in San Francisco. Not that I'm saying he's as good as him planning offensively, but again, growing up in the sport and knowing it really well. Also, since he worked with Peyton Manning in that Denver offense when they won the Super Bowl, I didn't realize, but Manning was teammates with Rand Carthen, who is the GM of the Titans, and apparently they talked about it, and he had nothing but good things to say about him. I also saw a video of Zach Taylor. He was talking about how they're Callahan is like really big on as far as like implementing the offense. He doesn't necessarily call the plays during the game, but throughout the week, building up the game plan and everything, he's very involved, and so he kind of understands why people were interested in him having a job. And I think with the Titans having a young quarterback and Will Levis, if that's who they think they're going to move forward with, then what he did with Burrow and a young quarterback in that system, I think is exciting for the Titans. Obviously, with the top 7 pick, they'll have to build the offensive line out and go from there, maybe get him some weapons, which they do have like $65 million in cap space. Would not be shocked if a couple guys from the Bengals organization, if they're free agents or not, kind of move over to the Titans, kind of help implement the system a little easier. So I'm excited overall, to be honest with you. Again, I was a little like, I don't know who this guy is, but the more I read into it and kind of think about it, I think we're going to be okay. I'm not saying we're going to win anything next year, but I think in a year or two, as they kind of build with him and their system that he wants to implement, I think they're going to be okay. And maybe us and the Texans are the ones battling for the AFC South instead of the Jaguars, because who knows what they're going to look like next year.
Dude, before I get to Trevor Lawrence, no, Trevor Lawrence just doesn't look like the guy that he was at Clemson. I don't know what it is. They gave him the offensive guru, quarterback guru, and Doug Peterson as his head. That's his name, right? Doug Peterson. Yep. I'm talking about the right guy. Okay, as the head coach. So you'd think that, but I'm honestly kind of surprised that it took so long for Brian Callahan to leave. Most times when coordinators are in charge of a team that goes far, they're poached right away. It's been a couple of years since the Bengals went to the Super Bowl. So he was able to not only take them there, but kind of develop and be able to learn more and even do pretty well with Jake Browning instead of having Joe Burrow out there. Yep. So kind of surprised it took so long, but maybe he was waiting for the right time. Maybe he got interviews or he got, phone calls and he was just like, you know what, no, I'm kind of happy right here. I'm not really interested in that. And now he feels like he's equipped to kind of take on the starting job. And again, as much as I'm a CJ Stroud fan and I guess a mini Texans fan for now, I'm rooting for your team to do well. I like when my friends' teams do well. Again, I kind of like the Raiders because my friend Andrew's a Raiders fan. So yeah, go Titans. Woo.
We'll see what happens. Like I said, I was a little concerned after letting Vrabel go and what the organization was going to do moving forward. But again, now that I see I think I read this was like the 10th, or they interviewed like 10 people. So it wasn't like they only interviewed a couple guys and had it narrowed down. They cast a wide net, and obviously they came down to Callahan and think that there's something special there. And hopefully that's the case moving forward.
I think it's smart, though, because that's really where the NFL is obviously heading. It's an extremely offensive league. So getting an offensive-minded head coach, I think, is the future, unless you're, those like a John Harbaugh who's more special teams, but he's kind of just solidified himself there, or like the Mike Tomlin who's more defense, but again, he's just kind of solidified himself there. The league is really heading towards a more offensive mind. I mean, even the Cardinals, they had one in Cliff, who we'll talk about in just one second, and have decided to go with the Eagles defensive coordinator on their run to the Super Bowl. Now, I'm not saying that it won't work out, but it just wasn't necessarily an exciting hire for me. But maybe he's going to turn into one of those Dan Campbell kind of guys, and just seems weird. He had kind of a weird interview, so maybe that's a good sign of things to come. But let's stick with Cliff, right? Let's stick with Cliff. Now, nobody's been hired. Those are the hirings that we have so far. But there's been a handful of interviews going around, including Cliff Kingsbury, who interviewed for the Bears' offensive coordinator job, who was connected, obviously, in his time with USC to Caleb Williams. Now, do you think this basically signals that they would draft Caleb if this is the guy that's hired?
I mean, I have to definitely think that way because he's worked with him the last year in SC as like the quarterback coach, not offensive coordinator, but offensive specialist, I guess, to kind of work with him and kind of figure out the system, since that's him and Lincoln Riley are very similar in thought process on that.
Mhm.
Also, if in a weird way, it's kind of the way the Bears can get more information on Caleb without having to actually interview Caleb and get it themselves. You can get like a
Ooh.
third party perspective to see what he kind of thinks about him and what he thinks his strengths and weaknesses are, because then it gives the Bears an opportunity to think more about him, or do they keep Justin Fields and draft and trade back in the draft and try to get more weapons for Fields? So I think it's kind of a double-edged sword as far as in a good way for the Bears to get more information on Caleb without having to wait for the draft process and go to him himself and give them an I mean, they're bringing Eberflus back as the head coach regardless. So
He was good, dude. He's a defensive guy, and their
Exactly.
defense was
So
pretty good.
what's the harm in bringing in Cliff Kingsbury and just getting intel on Caleb, if nothing else?
That's actually a really good point. I didn't even think about it that way. There was an interview recently with Jay Cutler, kind of asking
Josh
what,
Allen? No,
what
sorry,
he.
you said Jay Cutler. You said
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. Yeah, no, I'm dropping that for now. He did prove himself in this game. If he would have lost that fumble, I might have kept it, but it was luckily recovered because the Chiefs wanted to go and freaking scoop and score,
yeah,
so they
just lay on the ball.
dropped it. But yeah, just lay on the ball, dude. It's not that freaking hard. Anyways, Jay Cutler, the real Jay Cutler, was asked about what his thought is, former Bears quarterback, obviously, and what they should do with this whole. Yeah, they have a number 1 pick, but they kind of have a starting quarterback. In my opinion, I would move on. And Jay Cutler was asked, and he said basically they should keep Fields and trade down for assets to put around him. I wholeheartedly disagree, but again, Jay Cutler played in the NFL. I did not. I just have seen how much Justin Fields loses. I've seen plenty of clips where he is in the pocket, not really. I mean, there's pressure in every damn drop back. You have about 3 seconds to throw the ball. There's only so much you can hold back 300-pound muscle man.
Right.
But I've seen, like, how they have like sky cam and they show like the field. There's receivers like basically waving, having drinks at a table. They're so damn wide open. And he's just running around in circles and eventually just takes off. Now, he's extremely dynamic. His legs are awesome and he could maybe pan out to do something, but I don't see his vision, especially because see, that's what the difference is, in my opinion, to like Lamar. Lamar wants to be in the pocket, but can beat the crap out of you if he runs.
Correct.
Justin gives 1 second, and if he can't hit his first guy, his thing is to run around, scramble, and then eventually see if he can get somewhere. I just don't think he's the answer. I'm not a Bears fan. I don't really have a dog in the fight. I would wholeheartedly grab Kingsbury and draft Caleb Williams. That's my opinion. Jay Cutler disagrees.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm with you. I would draft Caleb, and then you can trade Fields to somebody else and maybe get like a 3rd-round pick because somebody will think he's worth it, an opportunity.
Maybe even a second, yeah.
Yeah, maybe a second if you can get it out of a team, take it, especially if it's for this year because you need more things to build around Caleb and give him weapons. I know DJ Moore was really good this year, and he's going to come back to the Bears, so that's one weapon already that they have. But why not try to build more? And then they have their own pick. I think it's his number like 10 or 9, somewhere in there.
Yep.
So
10.
again, if you can get more picks and build around, and the offensive line is going to be the main thing for the Bears if they take Caleb, because Caleb was just running for his life in SC the last year, and that hurt his. Not that he didn't have a good year when you look at his numbers, but when you're running for your life every play, it's hard to kind of go through your progressions like he normally would, and that's one of the things you talked about, how Fields just doesn't do that. So I think that alone is a huge upgrade for the Bears.
Yeah, you can see Caleb Williams at SC. Now, granted, he has more time. He's playing teams that aren't professional, but you can see him go through the progressions. And I stand corrected. They have the 9th pick. You were right.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, I mean, that's even more. Take him. Now, you're not going to get Marvin Harrison. That's hopefully what the Cardinals are going to pick up. But
unless you trade Fields and get another pick, and then you combo that with the number 9 pick so you can move up further in maybe in the top 5 and try to get Marvin Harrison that way. So there's plenty of options for the Bears. That's the best thing, is they have plenty of options and ideas that they can kind of run through the board and see what lands in their lap.
And you know who doesn't have those options? The people who traded them, the freaking Panthers. They're just sitting there in last place with no pick. That's tough. That's tough. More interviews. This one is the one I'm most excited about. I just want them to freaking announce it already because I'm
Yes.
hoping that he can do this. Jim Harbaugh having a second interview with the Chargers. They've also interviewed a handful of people for general manager, but it looks like Don. How do you say this?
I think
Ponte.
Aponte.
Ponte might be one of the front runners for the job. Chargers are obviously they fired their GM and they fire which is kind of weird they fired GM because they have a great team. So I don't. Maybe they're just pissed off that he hired Brandon Staley, so they're just like y'all go at one time. But yeah, Harbaugh's redoing the whole kind of front. I'm not Harbaugh. Chargers are redoing the whole freaking front office, trying to get Harbaugh and his coach and a new general manager. I just want this to be announced because I think Harbaugh is not the answer. I'm not saying that everything's going to be okay in Charger land now, but I definitely think it's a gigantic step in the right direction.
Absolutely. Give him much more credibility and somebody who obviously builds a football culture. All he's done is win when he was at San Diego in the college system or at Stanford
Mm-hmm.
and the
Yep.
Niners and then Michigan.
Yep.
So everywhere
Yep.
he goes, he builds a culture and win. Now, it might not be a 10, 15-year coach because it seems to kind of wear thin after about 5 or 6 years at each location when he's there, but that's okay. You just need
Mm-hmm.
something now for Harbaugh. And if you're the Chargers, you have no fans basically in LA. Nobody wanted you here. You're paying no rent, essentially, very little rent to be in SoFi. And most of your games are, with other fans of the other team. So if you have Harbaugh, completely changes the outlook of the team, completely changes the culture, and hopefully, not going for it on 4th and 20 every single time like Staley did will be a little more smarter and thought out on as far as the offense goes. And you also mentioned that they are interviewing for the GM. There's multiple people they've talked to so far. The GM for let's see, I think it was GM JoJo Woodson, who was their interim once they fired Telesco. The Giants assistant GM Brandon Brown, Bills director player personnel Terrence Gray, Bears assistant GM Ian Cunningham, Saints assistant GM Jeff Ireland, Ravens director of player personnel Joe Horitz. But you
That's what you
mentioned,
get.
yeah, but you mentioned Donna Aponte. She actually works for the NFL office. She's the chief football administration officer. She's been in the league. She started as an intern with the Jets back in the 90s as an accountant. She went to law school
Wow.
and worked her way through the system. She was named the Jets senior director of football administration in 2005. Then she went on to the NFL as far as the labor finance for the NFL's management council. She worked for the Dolphins. She's kind of done it all. So it would be the first, obviously, woman to be hired as a high executive, especially as a GM in the NFL. I think it's a great opportunity for her. She's got the resume. We talked about this last week when the Marlins hired, I can't remember her name off the top of my head, but to be one of their like head of scouting. She's been through the system. She's worked her way up and she deserves an opportunity at this. I just hope they make the right decision. And unfortunately, you're right. They shouldn't have let Telesco go because he built and drafted all these guys that have put them in
Great
this
team.
organization. And I believe Telesco's interviewing for the Raiders job. So if you're the Raiders, definitely bring him in because if Pierce is going to be your coach and they can bring in Marvin Lewis, let Telesco draft and see what he can do for you and build a roster from there.
The only thing that I would say is, although she's been involved in the NFL a lot and stuff, I don't know how much she would build a team. This is where I would prefer, as a trying to be Chargers fan, assistant GM to somebody who was a GM, so that way she could learn, and then she could take that next step. Because it's kind of hard to just kind of be a lawyer and be in player personnel assistants and stuff like that to all of a sudden being in charge of the whole roster. But she definitely deserves a shot, obviously being in the NFL for so long, to maybe be the assistant GM. I'd be super down for that.
That would be a good idea.
You know what I mean? Kind of learn from somebody, especially like I was thinking, the Ravens director of player personnel, Joe Horitz. Ravens know what the heck they're doing. They constantly have a good team. They constantly draft good players and develop them well as well. So I think that'd be pretty cool to maybe put her as an assistant to kind of start and see so she can learn even more. Like you talked about, she was able to learn with her time with the Jets from people from Mike Tannenbaum, Bill Parcells, Bill Belichick. So she's got some experience there. But being right there in the heat of it, as an assistant GM could maybe bode well for her next position. That'd be pretty cool.
That's a smart move, especially if she's there while Harbaugh's there and kind of learns how they build a culture within the coaching system. Ooh, that could be dangerous. She could really add on to that resume and then ultimately take over as GM somewhere else.
Exactly. Or maybe there if they, if the guy moves on or something like
That's
that.
true.
So yeah, that'd be pretty cool. Pretty cool. Nice. Well, that's pretty much all we got for the NFL right now. I know we have like another kind of new small segment that we want to try out. I'll leave it to you, my friend.
Yeah, so I've mentioned before about how like mental health is a big thing and everybody should take care of themselves, and it's a very important situation to deal with. So I just wanted to add, we won't do this necessarily every episode, but every couple I'm going to add this in. It's going to be Corey's mental health minute. It's just going to be a quote and maybe a website to look at too if you need help, because everybody at some point is going to need help, regardless if you want to admit it or not. So just want to make sure everybody takes care of themselves. The quote this week is going to be, your mental health is just as important as your physical health, even though we all go to the doctor to get our physical health, although you did today. So good job on you,
Yes.
sir. But we also need to take care of our mental health. And if that means getting therapy or talking to a friend or family member, whatever it is that you need to do in order to work on those things. So again, just your mental health is just as important as your physical health. And if you need anything or you want any information, you can look up healthguide.org. So just wanted to throw that in there. And again, we'll try to do this every couple episodes and make sure we keep mentioning it, because it is a big thing in this day and age, and everyone needs to take care of themselves.
There's just so much crap, I guess you could say, going on in the world, and the fact that we have social media at our fingertips and news like crazy. There's always been crap going on in the world, right? But it took weeks to hit the newspaper, or it took days to hit the TV, and now that you have it, and the moment it happens, it can get really overwhelmed with just a lot of stuff. So I like that, man. We will move on. Speaking of health, this one is a little bit of a sad story. It's happened a little bit ago, but we forgot to mention it because it had just happened on the previous episode. Dejan Milojevic, I probably messed that up and I apologize. The Warriors assistant coach passed away this previous Wednesday morning at 46 years old. Pretty sad story. He had a heart attack actually at the team dinner Tuesday night. The Warriors staff stayed at the hospital late Tuesday night, returned Wednesday to be with him, but he eventually did pass.
Yeah, just a really sad situation. Obviously, when we woke up Wednesday and you got the reports that the Warriors game in Utah was going to be postponed. At that time, we didn't know anything yet, so it was kind of like, well, what's going on? My first thought was like weather. The team couldn't get to the building, or fans weren't going to be able to travel there, because I know they've had that issue before, like Buffalo or Boston for hockey games, where they're like, nobody can get there. We're just not going to take the opportunity or the chance to put anybody on the road. But then you learn that he unfortunately had a heart attack at the team dinner with all the coaches and players there. And obviously, there's no way that those guys could go and play a game less than 24 hours later and try to handle all that. Again, we just mentioned mental health. This is one of those things that not everybody deals with death in friends or family in the same way. So some people take a little longer. The fact that, he's been on the coaching staff since 2021. So he's been there a while. A lot of those guys have gotten to know him. He's originally from Serbia. Apparently was a really good player over in Europe. Was a 3-time Adriatic Basketball Association MVP, won a gold medal for Serbia and Montenegro in 2001 Eurobasket. Also served as the assistant coach for Serbia's national team. One of the other things they talked about too is he was one of the first coaches in professional basketball to work with Jokic when he was over in Serbia. So him alone was really affected by this. And then the other one we talked about too was we talked about the Raptors head coach a couple weeks ago going off about the whole free throw disparity against the Lakers. Well, they were really good friends and coached together. So when the Raptors played their game the next day or 2 days later, they did run a play or two that he had drawn up and used previously, and they scored on it. So he was really emotional talking about it. And on top of that, they just had their first game today back over in but I think it was in Serbia itself. There's a bunch of fans just like chanting, and there's a photo of him up in the stands. And basketball in Europe is completely different as far as the stands and the fans are concerned. It's almost like soccer, there's players and everything. So we wanted to show this video. Again, it's in their foreign language, so we may not necessarily understand what they're saying or chanting, but it's just a really powerful moment that shows all these fans that showed up into the sold out arena and on our feet just giving an ovation to this guy.
Well, that is nice to see. It's kind of cool that he's honored like that. It is pretty sad. I mean, 46 years old, dude. That's really not much older than you and I right now. That's
I
only
know.
11 years away. So, um, still sad to see, but glad that people were able to kind of honor him as much as they can. Like you said, with the Raptors coach and this video that we just showed is nice.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll move on. Some more honoring done. This one we're going to be a little bit sarcastic with. Nobody passed away, luckily. But this one, the Miami Heat, as we know, we talked about how they retired Dwayne Wade recently. His number 3, they're going to put a statue out in front. If you missed that episode, go check that out. I believe it was.
Might have been last
When
week.
was that? Yeah. Okay. Go check that out. We got a little clip of Pat Riley kind of discussing exactly what their plans might be. But Udonis Haslem retired, number 40, by the Heat on Friday night. This literally made me laugh, dude. And I want you to read it because you found all these things. Please tell us how good Udonis Haslem was.
So obviously he was more important to the locker room more than anything else based on these numbers. Throughout his career, he averaged 7.5 points and 6.6 rebounds, which is not a whole lot. Never made an all-star team, never had a triple-double, never signed anything close to a max contract of any kind, never even won Player of the Week award throughout the NBA. So again, it had to be more about the locker room and culture.
Longevity.
And even 20 years in the same organization, undrafted, originally from Miami as well, so to be a hometown kid. And the other thing I thought was which we already knew at that point, but he played in a total of 65 games over the last 7 years he was on the team. So again,
ouch,
not a
less
whole
than
lot
10
of
a year.
Yes, so not a whole lot of contributions on the court necessarily in the last 7 years, but he was there for all 3 championships, including the first one in 2006 with Shaq and Wade as the anchors of the team. Was a very muscle guy, worked hard, did a lot of rebounding. Well, not based on the average numbers, I guess. Earlier in his career, that was kind of his thing, as he was their defensive specialist, especially as a small 4 guy, but played really well for them and was really important. And now he's actually joined the team as vice president of player development. And so, again, a big part of the organization as a whole, and more about what he brought intellectually and mentally to the team than he did on the court itself.
Yeah, I mean, if you watch enough basketball, you know who Udonis Haslem is. But again, it's not necessarily for what he contributes on the court. The Heat, we talk about it, we talk shit about it a little bit, but the Heat, kind of laugh at the criticism, thinking that they insist that his value in the locker room and on the practice court and as a mentor to a lot of the young players that they draft, which they're very good at drafting, was quote invaluable. So retiring is number 40, but honestly, dude, it sounds like Pat Riley just retires whatever numbers he wants. They retired Jordan, didn't even play there, so I don't know. It is what it is, I guess. But yeah, I thought it was kind of funny. I love that thing. Never did this, never did that. Wasn't on this, didn't do that. Didn't even win an All-Star or a week Player of the Week award. Just didn't do anything. So I know that he wants to join the Heat ownership group, and he currently works for the team as a vice president of player development. Which, it's crazy to think about this. I know that the phrase is for those who can't teach, but how come he didn't develop? If he's such good at developing, where was his development? Again, taking shots at him, legendary player for the Heat, pretty much only. But congrats on having your number retired. Congrats to you.
Unfortunately, he won't be the last one, because they've already said that once LeBron is done, they're going to retire his number 6. So that should be the last one for the Heat for a while, since Wade and Bosh are already up in the rafters.
Yeah, depending on how long Jimmy Butler, plays there,
That's
and
true.
I mean, he might be one of the next ones. Bam, I don't know. Depending on if they ever get rid of him, those are the only 2 that I can think of that might be in our order. But they're, from my opinion, kind of a long way from retiring. So yeah, it should be just LeBron coming up next.
Yep, absolutely. Which, you mentioned LeBron, and we have to talk about the Lakers. They played really well yesterday, but not so great on Friday. But during the stretch that they've won 3 of their last 4, D'Angelo Russell's been playing really well. I mean, 29 against the Mavericks last week, 34 yesterday against the Blazers. There's that nice.
You don't want to get traded, dude.
No, he does not want to get traded, man. And that's the thing. Like last night after the game, even when the game was about to be over, he's sitting on the bench next to Austin Reeves, and the video kind of catches him. He's not crying necessarily, but you can tell he looks emotional, like he knows something's coming, or he's aware more of what than we are, obviously. The other thing too is Rui Hachimura, who is normally like Mr. Happy-go-lucky and smiling. They show a video of him walking into the tunnel after the game, and usually players, social media guys catch him on video, or people, sorry, it could be guy or girl, catch him on video doing kind of like this hand signal. He does like the LA with his hands, and normally he's big smile, but he just kind of had like a melancholy, just like, hey, what's up? Here's the LA. Like, so I don't know if something's going on with both of them, but it's very strange what's going on because of all the rumors. And if you're
They're on
D'Angelo,
the trade block, right?
he's been on the trade block his entire career. If you think about it, every year he's somewhere. They talk about, well, D'Angelo could be traded, and he is on a 1 year plus 1 year deal. And so that kind of makes it a little more obvious. And it is the only contract that's kind of about 18 million, and is something that other teams could use or look into swapping or moving elsewhere after they get him. So I don't know. I just don't know what the Lakers are going to do. And the trade deadline is, 2.5 weeks away here on February 8th. So it'll be interesting to see. But yeah, just very strange, like, way of looking last night. And even on the point when they show him, Austin Reeves kind of like grabs his shoulders, like, it's okay, man. We're doing good. We're fine. But I don't know what to think about it. But we'll show you the video and see what you guys think.
Just ask for the Lakers deal when you order valid only LA area restaurants. And if you're at an LA area restaurant, who gets it, Stu? Okay, Stu don't have his headset on anymore.
I mean, I like D'Lo. I when he plays like this, I don't want to trade him, right? But like you and I were discussing last night, it's the ups and downs that kind of piss Laker fans off. I'm sorry. I think that he has an overall better offensive game than what DeJounte Murray or Bruce Brown, some of the people that the Lakers are looking to trade for, can bring. But what he lacks on defense is really where they excel. Even though DeJounte is quite a thin guard, he can stay in front of his man in most cases. He shoots decent from three, and he can create for himself. He just had 2 game winners last week on his own. Not someone created for him and him just doing a pull up. He went and attacked and made those shots. So, I mean, I'm kind of down, but I really like D'Lo, and he can get hot from 3, and that's scary sometimes. But the other scary part is when he's not hot from 3.
Absolutely. And come playoff time, if he can't play defense like he couldn't against Denver last year in the playoffs, they basically played him off the court, and he had nothing to do with the fourth quarter when it came down to crunch time. So I feel like DeJounte Murray could come more in handy when it comes to that at the end of the games when you need to make stops. So I understand the concept of why. Apparently the rumor is that the deal is essentially kind of agreed upon, but the problem is Atlanta wants to find a third team involved in the deal so they can flip D'Lo somewhere else. Yeah. So I think once that kind of gets situated, this deal might go down, but who knows? The trade deadline is not too far away, and who knows what will happen. Rumors are always out there, so who knows?
The thing I'm nervous about is the thing that most Laker fans should be nervous about. D'Lo knows, because he was drafted here and is obviously playing here now, exactly what it's like to play in LA, the pressures of LA and everything like that. Tell me, what pressures do San Antonio and Atlanta provide for their basketball teams? I would say none, especially when most of it is on Trae Young now that he's in Atlanta. The one thing that I do like is his contract. He's only getting paid in the 20s for the next 4 years. So it's super team friendly for a guy that can really create. The only thing I'm nervous about is we know what we get with D'Lo. When people show up here, they seem to diminish, whether that's the bright lights of LA and rocking the Lakers jersey, or whether that's playing with LeBron, or a combination of all three. And D'Lo knows what that's like and can step up in big moments. Now, granted, against Denver, we've seen some pretty small moments in the playoffs last year, but sometimes it's not, the grass isn't always greener on the other side. So I'm just curious if DeJounte would, maintain that level of play that he has in Atlanta with all the pressures that come with trying to fit in with LeBron, Anthony Davis, and rocking that purple and gold.
Yeah, I'm with you there. And the other thing, too, is that the fact that Bruce Brown is the name that's out there, I think it would be kind of funny if they were able to trade D'Lo for Brown after their whole little kind of spat between the playoffs last year and then this year when they played against Indiana. And D'Lo was quoted after game that he told him, yeah, you don't have Jokic in the paint to back you up anymore like you did last year. So that would be kind of a different little spin on that story. But yeah, Rob Pelinka doesn't not make a move at the deadline. He always seems to make something, whether it's a big deal or not. So the Lakers are definitely going to make a move. It's just a matter of what move and who they're going to move in order to do so.
Again, just hoping that they show up. Malik Beasley is a great example. Shot, I think, 33% for us, now shooting 45% for freaking Milwaukee. So the lights are different in Milwaukee than they are in LA. In my opinion, they are in obviously San Antonio and Atlanta too. So we will see.
Yes, we will.
Someone who loved the lights, didn't shy away from them at all, and we have to talk about it today. It's like a little mini segment of This Week in Sports History mixed in with our NBA talk. Today is the anniversary. It was January 22nd, I think 2006,
Yep.
or was it 2001?
2006, 18 years ago.
Kobe Bryant drops 81 on the Toronto Raptors. I remember this game vividly. I remember where I was. I was with my grandmother and grandfather. Both of them are now passed, so rest in peace. I remember sitting on that couch watching the game. Really didn't know what we were getting into, but man, what a show that we got to witness. 81 points, second most, in a single game, but the most ever caught on film.
Yeah,
because
true.
the only thing we know about Wilt Chamberlain's 100 is a picture that he's holding up with a number 100. So, to me, this is the apex of scoring. Again, that's not taking a shot at Wilt, especially since he did it without a 3-point line. But Kobe 81 in today's NBA, or close to today's NBA, is just awesome. Just awesome.
And I'm with you. I remember where I was. I was at home. I remember my dad coming in my room being like, you might want to, because I was watching the game in my room, but I was kind of going back and forth a little bit because they were kind of struggling to get a lead against Toronto in that game early. And then I think early third, my dad's like, you might want to just stay on the Laker game because Kobe's doing something. And I just,
boy, did he.
81. I don't even know how to, I mean, obviously we saw Embiid tonight. We were just talking about it before we came on here, that he got 70 tonight against San Antonio. But again, I think as a big man, and Wilt was the same way, that you're so close to the basket, you're probably getting a lot more free throws because you're getting fouled in there. And if you're a good free throw shooter, that helps. But Kobe was shooting from everywhere, all over the floor, and they needed him. It wasn't like, oh, just go score 81 because we're killing them and you can do it. Like, they needed that 81
to all 81
that lead in the fourth quarter and take over and win. And the big rumor that always talks about, I think I saw a clip of Lamar Odom today on a podcast talking about, yeah, like, I wanted to play and do something in that game too, but Toronto wasn't doubling him. They weren't switching him. They weren't doing anything. And there's been talk of years after this happened that I think it was Jalen Rose obviously is in the commercial famous with Kobe about the 81 olives, which is
let's show that. Let's show
yeah,
that.
let's do it.
Okay.
Jalen.
Oh, no. Hey, Cole, how you doing? How retirement treating you?
It's great, man. It's great. Just, a little writing, a little investing.
Nice. So I don't know if you saw the thing on Twitter about your statue.
I don't pay attention to that stuff.
Yeah, I figured that. Me either.
A drink, Mr. Bryant? Yeah, I'll have a vodka martini.
How many olives would you like?
81.
Really?
Nah, man, I'm just playing. Just 2. Joke for him. He gets it.
Love that commercial. I love that commercial. I didn't mean to interrupt your point, but I just love that commercial.
It's all good. They talked about how the coach, I don't remember who the coach for Toronto was at that time, but whoever the coach was, the players kept telling him, like, well, let's try this. Let's do zone. Let's switch out. Let's double. And he was like, no, we're going to make him beat us. Well, he definitely did. He did everything he could have, and he definitely beat you guys. Thank you to Toronto for making the Lakers have one of the best things that we can talk about. I mean, Kobe, there's so many stories with you and I especially watched we grew up from him being here as kids to adults and seeing him play for 20 years. This is one of those high moments to go along with the 5 NBA titles that we got with him.
Yeah, super awesome. So I know it's technically not our sports history day, but on the day we just felt like we had to do it. So Kobe, rip, you will be missed.
Heck yeah. And, we talked about how Kobe was so great and did a great job over 20 years and all these different things. Something that happened yesterday, Tara Van Derver, if I said her name correctly, who coaches the Stanford women's basketball team, became the winningest college basketball coach in history with 1,203 wins and counting, obviously. They still have a season to go. Mm-hmm. She passes Coach K to just be the most winningest coach in history, not just women's or men's, just overall in general. She's been coaching overall since 1978. She started at Idaho for a couple years, and then eventually she went to Stanford in 1980. She has been there ever since. They've won 3 NCAA titles in her watch. They've been to 13 Final Fours. So it's not that it's just they won a bunch of regular seasons. They have won titles. She becomes, I think, one of 3 coaches to win 3 titles, which Gino Auriemma at UConn and Pat Summitt at University of Tennessee. So just in the top of it all, I know that they had a bunch. I think Janeka Okwe was there as the post game. They had all the players wearing shirts, and then they gave her like a Letterman's jacket that had like tally marks of all the.
Oh, I saw that. That was kind of cool.
Yeah, so it's just great to see somebody. And they talked about too when she was a kid. She did an interview yesterday with ESPN and SportsCenter after that. Her mom and dad told her that there was no future in basketball for her. Well, man, were they wrong. She is now the winningest coach in college basketball history. I know Gino is not too far behind her, so they could be kind of going back and forth here in the next couple of years, depending on when they retire. But again, just a great coach and has been around a long time and deserves the credit that she gets.
Very well said. I think before I think it's Vander Veer. I want to make sure that we
Thank
say
you.
Tara Vander Veer. I want to say her name correctly. So, yeah, congrats. Especially anything that you do with Coach K and Gino Auriemma and Pat Summitt in the talks is legendary. So,
Absolutely.
props to you.
One coach,
Let's keep it.
though, I was
Yeah.
going to say, who did not do the right thing over the weekend was Texas coach Rodney Terry. This was just,
In our opinion, at least.
I felt bad for him to have to like explain this afterwards as well.
Yeah, they played Texas coach for the men's team played UCF, and after University of Central Florida, who isn't a very big school, so they should be happy to be a gigantic school in Texas. They were doing the all horns down celebration. You know, obviously the Texas Longhorns like to put the horns up when they win, and they put horns down as a hey, you guys lost. Rodney Terry calls it classless, and I don't know. I mean, there are things to say that you could to be a better winner, I guess you could say, but I mean, in that moment, the Washington people did it. The Washington, when they beat Texas in the Sugar Bowl,
Yep.
Washington was walking around the stadium like this. You didn't hear anything out of the head coach from the football squad. So we have a clip, right, of him discussing it.
Well, not only that, we're going to show the clip of first they're doing the handshake after the game, the handshake line, and the couple of the guys are doing it at the back end of the line. And as he's going down and shaking hands with players and coaches, he's like yelling at them, like, "Don't do that. That's classless." And blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, bro, these guys are kids. They're all like 18 to 21 years old. They're just having fun. And it's not like they went up to the Texas players and like did it in their face. They did it at the back of the coach at the line,
Just like,
just
yeah,
themselves in a group. And as they got into the line to do the handshake, stop doing it. So I think it's a little I don't know, crybaby shit in a sense.
100%. Yeah, 100%.
But yeah, we're going to show the clip here so you guys can see what you think.
I'm a big believer in, you win the right way, you lose the right way. And, I always tell my guys, whether you win or lose, you win the right way. You lose the right way, you carry yourself the right way. You don't go through the handshake line or prior to getting to the handshake line and have about 6 or 7 guys putting the horns down. We don't do that. Because when you do those kind of things, it looks very classless, and it also looks like you were just hoping to win. We never go into games trying to hope to win. We go into games expecting to win. So we don't act like that. We expect to win. We don't jump up and down like we won a national championship. We sure don't step on anyone's home court deal and act crazy and try to show them up in any way. We don't do that. So that's what I was angry about, and I was letting those guys know you don't do that. You guys won. Hey, we shake your hand, tip our hat to you, but we're not going to let you act that way in our building. You're not going to do that. You're not going to put your horns down and do all that nonsense.
Well, that's not the type of program we run. So if I see that, I will be addressing that personally from my standpoint. I know Coach Terry, he's a great man. I have a lot of respect for his program. Coach Heath, he and I go way back, coaching against each other in the American. So we're all about having class as a program. So I'll go back and review what happened, and if there's any action that needs to be taken on my end, from our staff, I will do that.
I don't know. I don't see the big deal in it.
Yeah.
When they win, they be walking around the stadium with horns up. So when they lose, don't be surprised when people do horns down. Plenty of people have all sorts of gestures that people mock all the time. You even saw it in professional sports, and those are supposed to be the most professional. Amon-Ra St. Brown, when he scored the other day, he did like the little Baker Mayfield dance that he does.
Yeah.
It is what it is, man. Like, I don't know.
The first one
I think they should get over it.
Like that is when Steph and CP3, when he was in Houston, had that thing where, Steph used to do the shimmy after he'd make a big three, and CP3 made one, and he did the shimmy kind of at Steph as they run down the court, and Steph's just laughing. Like, he's not even mad about it. He's just kind of giggling to himself. They asked him after games, like, yeah, well, if you're going to give it, you got to be able to take it. And I think this is one of those cases. Like, I know there's been talk, too, because before this horns down thing has come up in the past, there used to be a thing, well, they're going to not be in the SEC, and they're going to be in the SEC moving forward. But in the Big 12, the football side of it, they told the other teams that if you were to do the horns down as like part of your celebration, scoring a touchdown or anything, it could be a penalty. Well, that's not going to be the case in the SEC. The SEC does not care about that. We're just going to be like, again, if they're not doing it in the player's face or anything, and they're just doing it on the sideline,
That's taunting. That's a different penalty. You could do
Exactly.
anything in the player's face, and that should be taunting, regardless
Absolutely.
of what gesture you're making, right? Yeah.
Yeah, so I think it's ridiculous. And then apparently, after a couple days thinking about it, he did come out and issue an apology, saying, maybe it wasn't as classless as I thought. I should have been more aware. We respect the coach and
He's
the
just
program.
sad he lost.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing, man. You lost the game, and you shouldn't have lost it because you had a big lead, and you lost to a team or a program that's much lower in the rankings than you are, and you just got upset about it. You shouldn't have taken out on those kids.
No, they're just having fun. Again, taunting and being, obnoxious is a whole nother thing. But just celebrating in a way that kind of takes a jab at their university. And be honest, man, what the hell has UCF ever done? Let them
Right?
have a little moment. You know what I mean? My goodness, jeez. Texas is one of the largest universities our country has, and they have a thing that when they lose, people like to do it. I don't. Like I said, people are still doing it in the pros. You mentioned it in basketball. I mentioned something that in football. So if the pros are doing it, it's not too classless. Those guys are supposed to be the, most professional of them. And it is what it is. Like you said, if you could dish it, you got to be able to take it.
Absolutely. There was no, flipping fans off in the stands or anything like that. It was just
Or
horns
throwing
down.
snowball.
Yeah. Get over yourself. It's not that big a deal. And again, these are kids in college. They're not getting, they're getting paid, I guess, now in most sports,
Yeah.
but not getting paid like they are in professionals and expected to be at a certain level. Like, they're just kids having fun. A lot of these guys are not going to make it to the pros, and this is going to be their highest level of competition they're going to be a part of, and they're just having fun.
Happy to be Texas, right? Sheesh. Horns down. I'm all for it. I'm not a huge Texas fan, so.
Yeah, with you there.
We can transition out of the NBA. We got a couple notes from Major League Baseball. It's still the off season. You actually mentioned it. How many weeks until pitchers and catchers
I
report?
think we're like 3 weeks and change away from them reporting already.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
I feel like we were just at the World Series.
Yeah, seriously, we were, but time does fly, man. Especially as we get older, dude. It just seems to go even faster. Now I realize, when you talk to people as a kid, just time goes by so fast, and you're like, bro, you know how long it takes to get to my next birthday or until Christmas, right? And now that I'm older, I'm like, bro, time really does go by faster. Especially the older you get, it doesn't stop. So,
Nope.
But Major League Baseball is starting to come back in a little bit. There's been some offseason signings, particularly around some pitchers, and we're going to get into that right now. One of the biggest ones is the relief pitcher, Josh Hader. Huge arm, signs a 5-year, $95 million deal with the Astros. They are going to pay him up front. They aren't taking the cheap route out like the Dodgers are doing and deferring any money. It's apparently the largest contract to a relief pitcher by average annual value. Or annual average, I think I said it right. Average annual value.
Yeah.
I mean, I like the sign. I like the pickup. The Astros were, a series away from making it to the World Series after, losing to, was it? Did they lose in the AL Championship to Texas, or was that the round prior? Okay, I knew they lost to Texas. I just remember what round it was. So
yeah,
they
that
were
was
just
the series
that game set. Oh yeah, no home teams won.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I know they lost to Texas, and maybe this arm could have helped them out. So they're trying to solidify this bullpen. What do you think of the deal?
I mean, if I'm Hader, it's a lot of money, so I'm excited about that. And like you said, he's getting it all now. Part of it too is the Astros. The offense is definitely not the problem. Although they are getting a little older, like Bregman and Altuve are starting to get on the back end. So this is probably their last run here the next year or two to see what they can do. Adding to the bullpen, Hader sometimes is a closer, but sometimes not. Going to Houston. They can shift Ryan Presley, who they've been using as a setup role, back, and now they have like Bobby Abreu, who's also a closer that had a 1.8.
Brian.
Oh yeah, Brian. I'm sorry, who had a 1.84 ERA last year and 188 strikeouts and 132 innings. So the back end, those three guys are going to be really hard. And Hader as a left-hander, especially, and as hard as he can throw, is going to be a huge plus for them. If you look at the most saves in baseball since 2019, Hader has the most at 153. And then you look at the bottom of I think it's the 6-1 in line is Ryan Presley with 105. So two of the top 6 guys in that time are in the back end of their bullpen, and they got Abreu on top of that. So it's going to be deadly. They're going to basically shorten the game, especially if Verlander comes. Verlander comes back. He's only going to get through 5, maybe 6 innings on most nights. And if you have these 3 guys doing inning apiece at the back end, it's going to make them dangerous again. And unfortunately, the Astros are going to continue to be competitive. And I mean,
cheaters.
They did win the division last year, but like you said, they lost to Texas, who's the defending champs. But it's always hard in baseball to go back to back. So I think the Astros are going to be the favorite in the AL West again, especially after this edition.
Go Angels. I do think, to your point, having these three guys is similar to what we were able to see with the Diamondbacks. They really trusted the bullpen. They had the I forgot their names now because it's just it's not baseball season anymore. They had the three arms just waiting for the bullpen for 7, 8, and 9, just like you talked about. So Astros doing what Astros do. I really wish they wouldn't have cheated because before that, I kind of liked them as a
Dude,
storyline of drafting well and developing well and coming up. But the whole scandal, I can't root
I
for them at all. I'm
completely
100%
agree.
against them.
I completely agree because when they were winning that first year and we didn't know that they were cheating or anything yet, they were a lot of fun because they would hit a home run and that place would explode. The dugout would be excited, and it was just like, wow, they're having a lot of fun, and they're just like a fun team to watch.
Especially since they were so bad for so long after that, like Biggio team that they had, they were just in the dumps. I'm pretty sure they won like 48 games a handful of times, less than 50. They were not very good, and they finally, obviously with having high draft picks because you're pretty bad, were able to draft accordingly and build something up. But regardless of all that good, nothing can erase the cheating. And I'm happy that they beat the Dodgers. So it's not even really that. I just,
True, good point.
you should win. You should win accordingly. Play by the damn rules.
I think the only thing that goes in a positive direction for them based after the fact that they cheated is they did end up winning in 2022. And it was, everyone was watching everything they did. There was no way they're going to get away with any kind of cheating. So they did prove that even though they did cheat it in 2017, they are very good. I think they've been to 5 straight ALCS appearances as well. So it's not like, oh, they just randomly got there that one year. Like they are continually to be good and show that it wasn't a fluke. But again, because they cheated, we're not going to look at it the same. They say they have 2 titles. Other real baseball fans are going to say they have 1, and then the Dodgers just basically got screwed. Which again, as a Diamondback fan, I'm not mad about that part, but I do feel bad for them in a sense because you didn't really have a chance if they know what's coming and using it against you. But it is what it is.
The only thing that I would say to that is what a lot of people have said previously is it's not just the Dodgers that got screwed. Everybody in the AL that they had to play on the way there also got screwed. You know what I mean? So Dodgers may not have beaten the Yankees that year, or whoever else. I don't remember who was in the playoffs that year, but
I think they beat the Yankees in the ALCS before they beat the Dodgers in the World Series in 2017.
Yeah, some of the most storied franchises in Major League Baseball history. Definitely the biggest spenders, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And the fact that we talked about how haters come in as a really hard throwing left-hander. Another guy that left the Texas Rangers today actually is Aroldis Chapman, who is now going to the Pittsburgh Pirates of all teams, which is kind of strange. 1 year, $10.5 million. 2-time World Series champ, obviously last year with the Texas Rangers and with the Cubs in 2016. 321 career saves, 2.5 ERA, and nearly 700 innings pitched. So, very, very good. Hard throwing still at this point. The fact that he's been around as long as he has. I thought it was weird that he's going to Pittsburgh, but then I think about it like, Pittsburgh had a good start last year in the first half and kind of was in the run, and then they kind of fell apart at the back end. So if that's the case that happens again this year, at the deadline, you can just trade Chapman and try to get something for him. So I think it's a win-win. If you're Chapman and you're on the Pirates and you get into the playoffs, awesome. If they're not going to make it and they trade you, they'll probably trade you to a contender, somebody who needs an extra arm at the back end. So if you're Chapman, you get $10.5 million for a year, and either you're competing with the Pirates or you're getting traded and competing with somebody else who has a chance come October next year.
I'm curious how well he's going to do because there was a time when we were playing them in the World Series where I actually wanted Aroldis Chapman to pitch because the Diamondbacks hit well against him. So curious to see how he kind of recovers from that and shows up this next year. We'll see what happens in Pittsburgh, I guess. Cardinals, though, signing Matt Carpenter. I can't believe this guy still plays, to be honest with you.
I thought for sure he was retired by now.
Yeah, I didn't even know he was still around. 1 year, league minimum, $720,000. We're not even talking about millions anymore. We're talking about $720,000. Traded from the Padres to the Braves a few months ago, but after failing to trade him, they just basically released him. The reason why he obviously signed the league minimum is because Atlanta's paying him $5.5 million to not be there.
Yep.
So heading back home, right? That's where he was, right? That's where he started, St. Louis?
Yeah, 2011 to 21, he was there. Was on the team when they won the World Series back in 2011. Actually, I think Lance Lynn, who went to St. Louis this offseason as well, are now the 2 guys that were on the team in 2011 when they won their last title. So kind of weird that they're
going to go get Albert Pujols out of retirement too? Or
God, I hope not. That guy's done. But, I think it's a perfect fit if you think about it because obviously Goldschmidt's getting a little older. We know Goldschmidt is very good as a former Diamondback. And if you can give him some days off at first base and put Carpenter in there and then DH Carpenter kind of back and forth with him, I think it's a good thing. St. Louis is, they weren't in the playoffs last year, but they tend to usually be competitive most years. Last year was kind of an anomaly where you would think with Nolan Arenado and Goldschmidt on the corners and the offense that they could bring, they'd be in it. But bringing Lance Lynn in and now Carpenter, maybe you're bringing some of that championship caliber stuff back since the other guys haven't been to a World Series or anything. But we'll see. It's interesting to see, but I'm excited that, like we said, we're 3 weeks away from pitchers and catchers reporting, and before you know it, we'll be watching some Diamondback baseball again.
I am one of those people. I think it's because I have undiagnosed ADD, who needs to focus on one sport at a time. Right now, I'm in football mode. Obviously, it's the championship series, championship weekend coming up. After that, I will be in basketball mode, but still, of course, paying attention to baseball. It's the summertime where I dive into baseball. So, looking forward to seeing the free agent movement. But yeah, looking forward to it. Excited.
Well, you know how I am. I'm watching every sport all the time. I got hockey on right before me as we speak right now. I'm going to a lacrosse game here in a couple weeks down in San Diego. So I'll let you know how the Diamondbacks do early on while you're still focused on basketball. And then once the Lakers are done, you'll jump back in and we'll be fine over the summer.
Exactly. What a marathon episode that one was. It was definitely a good one. We had a lot. And like I said, we had to take some stuff out. Some of them were kind of like, do we really have to talk about this? But what a marathon. I am exhausted, especially since I am still under the weather. But we are not done yet. It is Monday, is it not?
It is, sir. We got one more segment before we wrap up and get out of here.
Let's get MILF Monday rolling.
Let's do it.
I cannot believe a fine woman like this produced a guy like Stifner. Dude! I took some MILF. What the hell is that? MILF.
Man, I love facts.
Yeah!
Hey, guys. MILF Monday. Let's get it. All right, man. What fact do you have for me today?
Well, since we were wrapping up with baseball and we're getting ready, like we talked about for pitchers and catchers report here in a couple weeks, I thought this was kind of interesting that, how everybody has a player name and number on their jersey, or number for sure, depending on what team we're talking about.
Yeah, no Yankees.
It was popularized actually by baseball initially. In 1916, the Indians at the time, they had complaints from scorekeepers and fans that they couldn't tell who was on the field because they weren't wearing any numbers or anything. So they became the first team to experiment with numbers. What they did is they put the number on the sleeve of the jersey, and it was based on your lineup position on your sleeve. It wasn't like an actual number you chose.
So like 1 through 9?
Exactly. Lasted a couple weeks, and then they kind of got over it and stopped doing it. The Cardinals kind of did a similar thing, I think 7 years later, before they scrapped it because Branch Rickey, their manager at the time, said it was continuing to embarrass the players, which I don't understand how that's embarrassing. I guess if you bat 8th or 9th, you don't want people to know what part of the lineup you're in, is the only thing I can think of. But it remained kind of a taboo way of thinking until January of 1929. The Yankees announced they were going to be putting numbers on the backs of their jerers.
Hey, today.
Yes. Oh,
January 22nd.
I didn't even notice that when I looked this up. Okay, so this week in sports, kind of on a MILF Monday.
Yeah, again, yeah.
The Yankees announced they're going to do it, and they did not they still don't have a name. They only have numbers. But the crazy thing, too, if you think about it, not only are they the ones that have created it and got it to be popularized, they are the team in MLB with the most jersey numbers retired, which is 22, which is crazy. Because if you look at it, too, not only that, 1 through 10 is retired, with 2 of them being number 8 for Yogi Berra, who was a catcher and a manager, and then Bill Dickey, who was a catcher as well. But yeah, you look at the list of guys that have played for them. I guess I'm not even including technically 42 because it's Mariano Rivera for them instead of Jackie Robinson. So you could say 23 as far as that goes. But I mean, there's just a lot of numbers. The fact that they were the one to start it and have so many retired more than anybody else, I think was kind of cool.
Yeah, that is pretty cool. What a cool fact. And again, today of all the days, that's just kind of lines up.
Funny. When I looked up this fact and wrote this on the doc, I didn't even notice we were going to be recording on the 22nd. I don't know. It totally spaced on me. That's hilarious.
But leave it to the Yankees to have to lead the charge, of course. I mean, obviously the most, famous franchise in Major League Baseball. I know the Dodgers are kind of climbing now with the amount of money they're freaking spending, especially they're spending it all over the world. But, some of the biggest names, Derek Jeter, Babe Ruth, Lou Gehrig, Joe DiMaggio, Mickey Mantle, Whitey Ford, Jorge Posada, Reggie Jackson, like you mentioned, Mariano Rivera, Andy Pettitte, Bernie Williams, just legends. And those are the ones that I recognize. I mean, there's a handful of others that, kind of didn't, that I recognize a little bit less,
Yeah, of course. Well, a lot of those guys too, Roger Maris played back in the 60s.
How did I miss that?
Thurman Munson was a catcher for them back in the day. Don Mattingly even has his number retired, who we know he's still involved in baseball today. So a lot of guys that have gone through there, and obviously Hall of Famers and numbers retired are worth it for them as far as that goes with the Yankees.
Yeah, kind of, and who you could put up there? Udonis Haslem, legend in his own right. You know what I'm saying? Number 40 retired.
Hey, number 40 is available. Should they do it?
Yeah, there you go. Maybe they should write that off. Yeah, jeez, that's so funny. Well, that's a cool fact, dude. That's crazy. Yeah, it's funny to think because now we're so used to every sport. Like you said, the baseball was the first league to popularize it. Every sport has freaking numbers now, so it's crazy to think of a time where there wasn't happen and how it was embarrassment. Again, that the point that you made, maybe the fact that it was their position in the lineup was that. But yeah, that's kind of cool. Now I wouldn't even know what to think. Like what number? I don't even know who that is. But great job, guy
Right?
who ran
That's
the
what I'm
ball. You know
thinking.
what I
I'm
mean?
like, how do you watch the game and root if you don't? I mean, I guess back then fans would know who they were based on how they looked because, I mean, it wasn't like the sport was it is today. So you either into it and knew everybody or you probably didn't care at all. But I don't know. I just think it's weird that you didn't have numbers at least from the get go, let alone names added on later by every other team besides the Yankees.
Agree. Couldn't agree more. Well, thank you. That was a good fact. That was a good fact. If you want to hear more of those facts, or like we kind of mentioned, things in sports history, you could go back and check out any of our other episodes. We try to wrap up each one with one of the two. Where could they find those, man?
Yeah, remember you can find us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts if you want to just listen to the audio version. But if you want to see us and some of the slides and audio clips and our video clips we put on the website, you can check YouTube out by searching Our View from the Bench.
Also, guys, don't forget to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at OurViewFTB. Seeing that it's Monday, how's the rest of your week looking? I know I'm trying to recover from this sickness. What about you?
Oh man, this week is going to be a long week for me. I was off today.
Well, you've had good breaks.
I have had a good
couple
break.
weeks of nice.
Yeah,
nice
the
schedule.
madness is back. And part of that is we have a game tomorrow, which is Angels night actually at Honda Center for the Ducks. So there'll probably be some players there tomorrow dropping the puck. I'm not sure who's going to be there. I haven't heard anything yet, but at least this time, because I believe last
Really,
year, the year before when we did it, there was still kind of that weird lockout thing that MLB was doing. So it was like former players from back in the day. This year it'll be active players. I know it won't be Ohtani, unfortunately, but that's a whole nother topic. But yeah, so we got a Ducks game tomorrow, and then I got a couple concerts that I'm working actually this weekend, 2 and 3 days. So it's going to be a long week for me. But how about you?
You get those steps in, that's for dang sure.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Not my week. Well, depending on how this sickness goes, I'm on some antibiotics. I'm going to be trying to rest, especially after this marathon of an episode. But just work. Got the doctor's note to work from home the rest of the week. I kind of one, I just need the rest, but two, don't want to spread it to other people at the office. You know what I'm saying?
Good point.
So just be kind of working from home. I am hoping that I feel better by Wednesday. Trying to be. It's been a long time. I know. I tell you a time. Wife and I hit Disneyland up. It's been a minute since I've been. Probably almost 2 months now. So we have tentative plans to do that on Wednesday. But again, it all kind of depends on how I feel. Other than that, just seems like a normal week. Getting ready for our next episode and NFL Championship weekend. That's what I'm looking for.
Which, okay, with my schedule being as crazy as it is, I have therapy tomorrow. I got Stretch Lab on Wednesday. I'm working a Morrissey concert on Friday. I'm working Brian Adams concert on Sunday, which obviously the game's are on Sunday. So unfortunately, we're not going to be able to record Thursday. I'm working a watch party for the Ducks game because they're on the road. So again, my schedule is crazy this week. So what we're going to do instead this week is record on Saturday night. We will get everything posted by Sunday morning, so that way you can listen to the preview of the NFC and AFC title games before they get started at noon here on the Pacific time zone and see what we pick and whatever other topics come up between now and then.
Yeah, we definitely talked about a lot, but hoping for some more coaching hires and maybe some more baseball acquisitions. Any sort of other NBA news might pop up. Looking forward to it, man. Looking forward to it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Saturday. So again, sometimes our schedule has to shift, but we're always shooting for 2 a week for everybody. So
absolutely, we got to be previews of the playoffs before the Super Bowl
100%,
games. Like,
100%.
My preseason picks are still live. Of course, we have to preview it. And the Lions are in the NFC title game. Who would have thought?
Detroit football. Don't really hear that too often.
No, not at all.
But I appreciate everybody dropping by today. Always thank you for seeing things from our view from the bench. I'm Brendan.
And I'm Corey. And like we always say, enjoy the sports until we talk again.
Peace.
This was a Sycamore Fourth Studios production.